What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for tuning in today, and for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Rachel. I am a school psychologist. I'm in my second year right now out in the field, and yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in today. So for today's video, actually before I get into it real quick, I do want to share, my sister has her own Etsy shop and she does calligraphy. So I wanted to share the couple of things that she gave me recently. And my sister makes like a bunch of different things too for her calligraphy shop. So she designs like stickers, vases, planners, kind of like everything, you name it. So I'm gonna link her Etsy shop down below. She's had it open for about a year now. And now that I have a couple more products, I thought I would share them with you guys because I have a couple of her things, but they're like home decor pieces that she made specially for me. So I thought I would show you guys some of the things that are on her Etsy shop right now. So look how cute these stickers are. This one says Hello Sunshine and it has oranges. I think it's so pretty. And then what does this one say? Make each day your masterpiece. And it has a bunch of floral print at the bottom. And these are all hand drawn by her. And then I also got a planner. This one says trust the timing of your life. I think it's really pretty. And she has a few different types of planners. So she has like, I think one that's more floral. I kind of like the neutral pattern of this. So definitely go check out her Etsy shop. I'm gonna have the link down below in the description. Okay, so for today's video, I got a request that I actually was thinking of making a video about, and then like knowing that somebody wanted to see it, I was like, okay, I'll make it because I think it would be helpful for a lot of people. And I think it would have been helpful for me, like if I was still in grad school. So today I'm going to be talking all about like report writing and you know what it means to write a psychological report. So the main thing that I do as a school psychologist is assessments. Most school psychs have a comprehensive role. I am the exception. I don't do anything else. I do assessments, I write the reports, and then I report my findings at eligibility meetings. So that is my only sole role right now, and that's my favorite part of the job, so I'm happy just doing that role right now. So with assessments, a big piece of that is writing up the evaluations that we do. So we write it up in a psychological report or a psychoeducational report. So a psychological report is when you are just doing pieces that are considered a psych. So cognitive tests, like, you know, IQ tests, and also like social emotional assessment, or looking at students' executive functioning skills, looking at attention. All of that falls under the basis of a psychological evaluation. And then you have a psychoeducational evaluation. They're pretty much the same thing. The only difference is the education piece. So if I'm doing a psychoeducational evaluation, I'm also doing some sort of academic testing, whether it's in reading, writing, math, oral language, or all of the above. So that's the difference, first off, between a psychological eval and a psychoeducational evaluation. So the psychoed can encompass everything that the psych does, but it just adds in academic. So those are the two types of reports that I write. It was definitely a learning curve, like learning how to do report writing, because we didn't have a class necessarily on like how to write reports in grad school. It was kind of just something like we worked on writing up some different assessments and tests in my class, but honestly, we didn't get a lot of feedback around that, and I kind of wish we had more prep, because then when I went into my internship, my supervisor was amazing. Like, she was very thorough with her reports. She taught me so much, and like the first report that I ever wrote for her and she critiqued it, she like critiqued the whole thing. Like every single page had so many like edits and suggestions, which I was actually, at first I was really bummed about that because I was like, oh crap, like I cannot write, I guess. But it's just because she has so much knowledge and experience, and it was so helpful for me in the end. I've been writing my reports like my supervisor from internship ever since, or I at least try to. Every school psychologist's reports are gonna look really different, you know? Like there's no one way that you can write a report. So it looks different for like me and my coworkers. We all do some things like a little bit differently. So I will tell you the basics of what I typically put in my reports. And yeah, I hope this is helpful for you guys. I can't exactly show you, I don't have like a blank template. Maybe I can try and create one, or I can like put a couple of pictures of things if possible. So I'm gonna see about that. But yeah, so let's get started. So the first thing that I always write in the report, I use a template for my district. So it has like, you know, our school district's name on the top, and my boss's name on it as well. It says special education. I always have at the very top like confidential, psychoeducational, or psychological evaluation. And then you just have like some descriptive information like the student's name, date of birth, the dates that you evaluated them, the date of the report. So that's just all at the top. And I want to say too that my reports don't look like an essay. Like it's kind of like I'm writing by sections, you know? So in bold, I'll have reason for referral. That's the first like bolded thing I have. And I usually will just write like a couple of sentences. So under the reason for referral, I'll write why the student was referred, you know, if it was from the parent or a teacher referral, and what the main concerns are, and what I'm going to be doing throughout this psychological evaluation, like what I decided to assess based on those concerns. So that's typically what I'll write in the reason for referral. So it's not very long. It's only like 3-4 sentences. And then underneath that, I have assessment instruments, and then I just like literally list bullets. So did I give an IQ test, like the WISC? I'll just write, you know, WISC out in full. So I'll write the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children. If I gave any rating scales like the BASC, I'll write that down. So I literally just list all of the assessment instruments I did, like student interview, file review, anything like that. This way, when you look at the front page, you know what I did, and then you can go look for it. Yeah, so under assessment instruments, so I have reason for referral, then assessment instruments, and then I always have background information. So I think I write like relevant background information, and I pretty much just look online. We have like, you know, 3 or 4 different platforms that have like student information. So I'll look at grades, office discipline referrals, attendance. I write as much stuff down in my background information as I can possibly find online about the student. Or sometimes if it's a reevaluation, meaning the student's already in special ed, I'll write down like when they first qualified, what their current goals are, if they've ever had other goals that were like later removed. I just try and write as much about the student as possible because 2 reasons. It helps other people get a better picture of the student when they're reading my report, and it helps me get a better picture of the student. So that's always helpful. I like to have as much background information written as possible. Typically it ends up being just like a couple of paragraphs. And then under relevant background information, I always have, I think it's the student interview next. Yeah. So I'll do a student interview. Typically if they're older. If they're really young, then I don't do a student interview, but most of the time I assess high schoolers or like middle school. So I'll just write up a little student interview that I did with them, and typically I'll do that before we do the testing. So I always write that up, and that's just like a paragraph. Another section that I'll have, which would be underneath student interview, is previous cognitive assessments. And again, that's if they're already in special ed, if they've already had a cognitive assessment done. I like to look at those scores and see how they compared to the scores that the student had with me when we were doing cognitive testing. So I would typically write down their previous cognitive and just like a little summary of how they did and the scores. But if it's an initial, I wouldn't even have that section. Underneath that, I will have my cognitive assessment piece. So that's where I write up the IQ test that we did. So I'll explain a little bit about what it measures, and then I have a graph that I include. I could probably link an empty version of that graph here. And it includes the 5 areas that we looked at, or 4 areas depending on which test I'm giving. It'll give like the standard score, so where the student scored compared to other students their age. I'll put percentile ranks. a qualitative descriptor. So like, were they in the average range? Did they perform below average? Did they perform very high? So those are qualitative descriptors. And then I'll just write up the cognitive afterwards. So I'll have like a little mini section for each thing that we looked at. So like verbal comprehension, I'll just do a little write-up about that. I try to keep those short because you just don't want to include a lot of jargon, and I like to just get to the point. So I'll try and include like a sentence or two about what it looks at and then how it looks in the classroom, and then I'll write up how they did on it. After I write cognitive results, if I did academic testing, I would typically put those next. So again, I would include a graph and then the standard scores, percentile ranks, and whether it was like average, below average, high average, etc., and write that up. And then typically towards the end of my report, I'll do like the social emotional piece or executive functioning. So I'll usually title that social emotional assessment or executive functioning assessment. And I will again explain like which rating scales were given, who completed them. I include a chart that the Basque generates, and I really like it because I think it's just so much more visually appealing and easier to read for parents when I include this type of graph. I'm gonna try and link it here. The one I'm gonna link is like a sample, so it's not taken from any real student that I've been working with. And yeah, I'll just write up underneath each graph, like, you know, what things were in the at-risk range, meaning slightly more concerns, which things were in like the clinically elevated range, meaning there's significantly more concerns in that area. So yeah, after I write that up, I think, yeah, after that I have the summary and recommendations. So the summary always takes me the longest because that's where you have to actually reread everything and kind of analyze it and say, okay, what does all this information mean? Were there similarities among like teacher rating scales, parent rating scales? Was there a similarity in how the student performed on the cognitive or academic tests compared to like a test they took previously 3 years ago? So the summary always takes me a while because you want to try and analyze everything and, you know, say, okay, what does this mean? How is the student doing in school according to my evaluation? Are they making progress or do they need more support? The summary is at least 2 to 3 paragraphs, I would say. And then I always want to have recommendations after that. So like based on the results of my evaluation, the following recommendations are suggested. So I'll typically try and write about, I don't know, anywhere from like 4 to however many, like 10 recommendations that I can write. It's harder to write recommendations if there was nothing wrong with the student on the report. Like if everything turned out great, like their cognitive was good, academic was excellent, no behavior concerns, no social emotional, everything was average, then it's a little bit harder for me to generate recommendations. But if there are areas of need, I will target those in the recommendation section. Sorry, someone's making noise outside and my window's open, but it's so nice out, I don't want to shut it. But yeah, so I would say my reports, it really varies. Like for some students, I might just do a cognitive, and that would only take me like 3 to 4 pages to write. Because again, I would do like background info, student interview, previous cognitive, and then the cognitive I did. So that would probably be like 3 to 4 pages. But some of my reports can get like up from 10 to 12 pages if I'm doing a lot of rating scales, testing. It really depends what the referral concerns are, and then I go from there. But I would say anywhere from like 4 to 10 pages is each of my psychological reports. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this video was helpful for some of you. I know that report writing looks really different for everyone, so I thought I would just kind of give my input on how my reports look and how I structure them. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I make new videos every single week. And until next time, I will see you guys very soon. Bye. Through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights.